I'm so thrilled this week to welcome Clare Gangadeen. She is the founder of RiderCise, and as a soft tissue therapist for humans, avid rider, and with over 20 years of experience in the fitness industry, Claire is really well known for her expertise in helping riders overcome their limitations in mind and body to reach their highest potential in the saddle. She also offers expert coaching and bespoke programs. And we're going to find out lots more about all of that. So, very warm welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Tracy. Lovely to be here.
So, tell us where it all started for you with horses. Are you from a horsey background?
Um, Self-made horsey background, and that means I first sat on a friend's or a neighbour's pony called Pooh when I was about seven, maybe younger, 7 or 8, that sort of age. And it's self-made because I became addicted, so I made my parents like ponies. They weren't horsey, but my dad went out of his way to give me the opportunities to go riding. Not as expensive as it is now, but to take me as much as he could afford back then, all those years ago, which was about once a month.
Lovely. So, you got hooked, but you were also a bit of an addict when it comes to Friesians as well, aren't you?
A little bit. Um, my husband Adam actually jokes and sends me quite a few messages because I talk to clients most days and talk to people all the time, and he overhears my conversations, and I get these little messages going, "No more ponies." But yes, I am totally addicted to Frisians just because of everything that they are. They are giving, forgiving, loving, massive, but so very, very gentle. And they've taught me an awful lot, and I therefore owe them everything that I can give.
Oh, that's lovely. They're so flashy as well. They're so gorgeous,
High
Frisian, the
maintenance, you mean?
movement. Uh, well, I know they're not easy, and you've got four of them, haven't you?
I have, yes. No, they're not easy. They come with many sort of care conditions, if you like. Um, they do suffer from some skin problems. They can get sweet itch, and their joints are prone to osteoarthritis. So yes, they do come with a care condition label, if you like.
So, what about the fitness side of things for you? Has that also been a lifelong passion, or is that something you developed later on?
I would say later on, the reason being when I was at school and I was so far from an ideal student, um, I didn't do any PE. So I think in year 9 at secondary school, and I know all the grades are changed now, but year 9 in secondary school, out of 294 days, I attended 74 days of school.
Oh,
And
wow.
I attend and I attended 2 PE sessions.
Right. Okay.
So I hated fitness. I think it was just where I was in my mindset. I was a troublesome teenager and I was quite overweight, which is different to what it is now because to be the weight that I was then, or the size, I was roughly a size 14, is now viewed as a standard size
Yeah.
today. But it
Yeah.
wasn't,
Yeah.
25 odd years ago. But sizes have developed since then. And I was overweight, but I was happy and confident in who I was as a teenager. And when I got to the age of about 18, I saw a photo of me with my then pony, and I just said something has to change because I
Right.
saw myself differently. And I suppose when you get to a certain age, and it varies for everyone, you look at yourself and what you thought you saw in you changes, your perspective completely changes depending on everything that's going on in around your life. Um, So I dragged myself to the gym, and I had this great friend at the time who would pick me up so I couldn't make excuses and I couldn't leave until she left. And she loved to spend ages at the gym doing little, but she loved it. And so it forced me into a situation. And I remember being that girl at the back of the gym with the baggiest trousers, the baggiest t-shirt, just trying to hide away and just do what I got to do. And it took me about a year, but I lost nearly 6 stone.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
it is a massive difference. So I went from borderline 14, 16 at that time to a size 8.
Gosh.
And everything changed for me because I became incredibly confident. I was no longer that girl hiding at the gym. I was wearing the tightest, skimpiest things because, I was in my 20s then, so I didn't care. Skimpiest clothing, showing off what I had built. And I was very proud and amazed by what I had achieved, but what my body had achieved with discipline. And because of that, I became hooked on fitness.
Yeah.
And I decided to then go and qualify because I was just amazed by the human body.
Yeah. Wow. That is such a transformation. And I'm interested, in the teenage you because and not going to PE and not going to school. Do you think it was because it was so regimented and full of rules and even the PE, where you think you've got a bit of freedom, you haven't got the freedom because you're being told what to do in a very, very structured way. Is that something that was a key factor for you?
Yeah, in a roundabout way. What it actually was when I went to school, or I had 5 brothers. I sadly lost a brother a couple of years ago, but I had 5 brothers and they're all older than me and they went to the senior school that I went to. So when I turned up, I was tarnished with their name.
Okay.
And me being the sort of person that I am, I'm very strong-minded, independent, and determined. They kind of tarnished me with this brush of being a troublemaker. So I wrongly, but rightly, and I'll explain why later, decided I will give you trouble. So I lived up to it, and I would not accept any authority telling me what to do, when to do it. And for the very limited time that I was at school, I spent months of that time in isolation in a room smaller than a 12 by 12 stable, just copying from books. I wasn't allowed to socialize with any of the other children, so I had to have break times on my own. I had to be there an hour before school and an hour after school.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
But that just forced me even further down my rabbit hole of I would not conform. I would not be penalized for something that I didn't do. And I wouldn't be treated in such a way or made to adhere to their rules and regulations because of the way that they treated me initially. So, yes, it was kind of not wanting to be dictated to. And why I say wrongly but rightly, I do not regret anything that I have done in my life because it's made me who I am today. And it was a decision that I consciously made as a youngster um, to defy them. And I then had to, once I was in year 9 and I had those 2 days of PE and, 74 days at school, I had to leave. They asked me to leave, and no other school in the county would accept me. So I had to change counties. My parents were divorced, so I left my mum and went to live in with my dad in Berkshire. And I had this encounter with many people who live in Berkshire will know of Mr. Dick, who was head of the Kennet School and head of many other schools in Berkshire as well. He took one look at me when I turned up for my induction, and he just said, "Take your hands out your pockets and sit there and be quiet." And I don't know why, but something struck a chord with me. And my dad took a very different stance, and he said, "You don't want to go to school, don't go." So I didn't. And then eventually I decided I wanted to go. And when I was doing all my SATs, I was predicted ungraded for everything. I would fail absolutely everything. And then met another teacher, uh, my history teacher, and he had words with me, and his enthusiasm for life, even though I hated the class, I liked him. And he said something to me which, hit me. And in the last 2 weeks of my GCSEs, I studied and I passed every single grade. Well, every single class with A to C. So yeah, I am a little bit hesitant of authority, and I don't like being dictated to. And the weight loss is it it's something that I had to decide on my own. I don't really remember being bullied for it, but there are elements of being bullied in my past,
Yeah.
which I turned around because I don't accept that sort of behavior from people either. And I've probably gone way off topic.
No, I mean that's really interesting. I'm very nosy and I'm curious to find out about people and their backgrounds and how they've got to where they've got. And most people have a bit of a horsey tale, a bit of a professional tale, but yours is quite astounding, really, where you've come from, because you could so easily have just become a dropout and had a kind of very, very low level job. But you haven't. You've become an entrepreneur, you run your own business. And as you were talking and telling us about that time at school, I was thinking, one of your programs called the Strong Confident Rider. And I was thinking, where and when did you blossom into the Strong Confident Rider yourself?
So many people who know me or have come across me will know my story of how RiderCise existed. And it came about, I had a massive fall from my top mare, Anique, and she's my top mare because she's taught me more than any horse in 20 years. I had a fall from her, and it was at that moment that I decided that I had to be better. And that fall made me want to do what I do today. And it has pushed me for years to keep going despite all the diversities of being an entrepreneur, and striving to help riders so that they never feel the way that I felt as I led on the floor.
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh. And were you a soft tissue therapist at the time, or did you do that after the fall?
I Let me think. It was a couple of years after.
Right.
Yeah, so I was a fitness professional,
Yeah.
working in the industry, and also have a commercial background as well, which goes hand in hand with running a business. So very commercially apt. And then a couple of years after the fall, I think it was in 2014 that I then done my soft tissue therapy.
Okay. And how does that differ from other types of physical therapy?
Soft tissue therapy is basically the manipulation of soft tissues, so muscles, ligaments, and tendons. Um, it differs in that many other therapists, so for example, osteos and physiotherapists, don't actually touch or manipulate you in
Yeah.
certain ways. So, like a chiro or an osteo may do skeletal adjustments, an osteo may do ligaments as well. A physiotherapist won't actually manipulate you. And the reason that is their syllabus for their coaching doesn't actually cover soft tissue. I think depending on when physiotherapists, etc., done their qualifications, um, I know that 15, 20 years ago, it covered soft tissue, but the later syllabus is only about 2 weeks. So the knowledge is very limited within that area. Now, of course, there are many osteos, physios, and chiros that go on to further educate themselves in soft tissue by a different program, course, degree, but it's not typically taught. So we soft tissue therapists don't do skeletal. Again, we can go and further qualify ourselves to do that, but our specialism is on the actual soft tissues of the body. So we come and we will actually manipulate the person there and then,
Yeah.
rather than test them, assess them, and send them away.
Okay. So, having done all of that, you must have quite a good knowledge of anatomy and physiology. How does that set you aside, make you different to other people who do exercise programs for riders?
Oh, that's a great question. And okay, so as a rider, it is so important to understand how your body functions in the saddle versus how it should function in the saddle. But without the anatomy and physiology and the fitness aspect, as in movement patterns, functional movement, how the body operates, you don't really have a clear understanding of how you should function in the saddle. Because as riders, when you go to learn to ride, they say, okay, let's do a rising trot, for example, up, down, up, down. They don't tell you how to do that. You just kind of go, oh, I stand, I sit, I stand,
Yeah.
I sit. They don't tell you which muscles to squeeze or to make work to create that movement. And nowhere in any coaching syllabus for horse riders is how to use your body correctly to learn to ride. So the knowledge that I have gained, as well as being an avid rider for many, many years, is being able to understand what muscles typically a rider will use
Mm.
versus what they should use, understanding the disconnect as well as the neurological pathway disconnect, which is very important, and helping riders to gain control of their bodies to be able to function optimally in as well as out of the saddle. And a lot of that is brain training, retraining. So many of you might have heard of mind to muscle connection. And it is, if you need to train your brain to think of the muscle that it should use to force it to engage to create the movement. And if that pathway is blocked or disconnected, then it doesn't work no matter what exercise you do, or no matter how many times you go to a gym. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. So my method is smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Oh, great, great. So, tell us a little bit about how you help riders. Tell us a little bit about the programs that you offer and the types of riders that you work with.
Okay, so the types of riders that I actually work with are an average age of 50. So typically between 45, with my eldest so far being 80.
Okay.
And they are riders who have had time out the saddle for whatever reason, or had a fall and had their confidence knocked. But basically, people who just want to ride for the love of it.
Yeah.
They want to feel connected with their horse. They understand the importance they play, and they want to feel like they are contributing rather than hindering their horse. And they just want to enjoy it. They want to feel, if they wanted to go and do a show, they could, but they don't necessarily compete. So that's 95% of my clientele. And then the other 5% are those who are actively competing at various levels.
Yeah.
And my programs are all based on, so I have the bespoke, the fast track, and the strong confident rider program, they're all based on analyzing where a person is right now and fixing the base problem, the underlying issue. Because, like horses, if you build upon a weak base, you only set yourself up for failure. So that basically means looking at somebody's posture and how they function on the ground. And we address those issues first. So we correct posture, we correct function, and then we build upon, depending on the person's goals, short-term goals, and their long-term aspiration. And we work together quite intimately over the period of time. And my average retention is 1.5 years of my clients before I then, go live your life, enjoy it. We work together intimately to help get them to where they feel happy and confident to continue their journey on their own.
Okay. So, do you work remotely or do
Yes.
people? Okay, so you work on Zoom. Do you watch people ride as well as how they move off the horse?
So in my programs, apart from, well, the Strong Confident Rider does have an element of this. I work with riders all over the world. I have a large number of riders in the US and some European countries, and of course the UK. Everything I do is online, which makes it completely accessible for anyone. What I tend to do with all of my clients, apart from the on-demand stuff, is I design a base program for them, and it's for me rather than for them. And they perform this program, and I either receive videos from them doing the workout or I watch them on Zoom. And it allows me to identify dysfunction in the way that they function on the ground. So I don't need to see how they function in the saddle because I already know based on how they function on the ground.
Oh, that's really
But
interesting. Yeah.
if they want me to, I'm more than happy to watch them ride and pinpoint, why they're having issues, why they do this and do that. But there is a direct relationship between how you function on the ground and how you function in the saddle. Because if you have a muscular imbalance, it is translated to how you ride. So a very simple explanation is if you struggle with contact, keeping your hands steady, and you have rounded shoulders, you will have a rounded shouldered posture on the ground.
Yeah.
It's a direct translation. So I analyze their functional movement on the ground, and then that's my base point of where I start designing programs to correct what I need to correct to give them a strong base. And yes, they do send me videos of them riding. Just say, hey, what do you think? Why is this, or why do I stick my toes out? Why am I bouncing in the trot? Um, or just to show me their progress.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. What's a really common, what can I say, deficiency, for want of another word, in riders? What do you notice most about riders in general or the riders that you see? Is it the toes are out or the rounded shoulders, or is it something else?
The most common thing is gripping with the knees.
Okay.
And it comes from coaching cues. So anyone who has done an equestrian coaching qualification will know that it is still taught in the syllabus to grip. However, if you grip with a horse with your inside thigh, the knee will be applied.
Yeah.
When you grip, it pushes you up and out of the saddle. And you can just test that sitting down, just squeeze your inside thigh and you feel your body lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you squeeze and you're taught to grip, so if you grip the horse, you lift yourself up out of the saddle and you become vulnerable. And as the knee is then applied to the saddle, not only does that signal to the horse to slow, to steady, or to stop, and then we kick because the horse comes behind, But the lower leg acts as a pendulum. So you lose control of the lower leg, which can cause it to turn out or to swing or to nag. And it is the most common thing that I see in riders because, coming back to what we said, when you're taught to ride, you're not taught how to use your body to ride. So when somebody says and trot and sit trot and transition to canter, your brain has to very quickly figure out how to do that while staying in the saddle. And the natural response is to grip. And that's then backed up by a coaching cue with like, grip, hold on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And whilst the coach may mean something different, they haven't translated it well to the rider. So the rider interprets that as squeeze more,
yeah,
and then they become more vulnerable. But once you learn these things, it's very hard to unlearn.
yeah.
And I would very confidently say 90%, if not more, of riders that grip do not have any idea that they are doing it.
Mm.
And you will say, stop gripping, and they will adamantly tell you they are not. And there's ways that you can prove that they are, but that is the most common. And that will account for lower leg instability, collapsing through downward and upward transition, unsteady hands, bouncing in the sitting trot, unable to get canter. If you have a dominant right leg, you can't get you can't get right lead canter. If you have a dominant left leg, you can't get left lead canter. It also causes horses to be disjointed. It can also cause horses to have intermittent lameness, and it can also cause back problems for the horse.
Wow, all from that. And what does it stem from? Does it stem from weak hip muscles, or is it that the thigh muscles are just switched on too firmly?
Yeah, pretty much. The Again, what we say, and you're not taught how to do the sit and trot or to transition to canter, what muscles you should be using. Um, so the body quickly figures it out, and we rely on the grip method. And we are all one-sided, like horses. They're all one-sided, and we will tend to overgrip on one side in order to stabilize on the opposite side. But it also comes from, the coaching cues that are given.
Mm.
Um, because the words that you say to a rider at that time are very influential. And you could say 15 words and they will pick five of those words that they hear and they take on board. So, for example, when a coach says heels down, what that actually means is when the heel is being curled towards the bottom. But because it's not explained correctly, riders have this assumption that heel should be below the ball of the foot, which is incorrect.
Yeah,
Because biomechanically, it locks the knee, locks the pelvis, it causes you to bounce, you become behind the movement, and you're vulnerable. So it's a combination of the body not functioning correctly, as well as coaching cues being given, which back up the inefficiency of how you're using your body.
yeah. And I mean, you've told us the things that can have a knock-on effect, all the, the extra things that can happen to you and your horse. But of course, it rocks your confidence as well because you're not stable in the saddle, are you? I mean,
Absolutely.
you're perched on top of a saddle, and you're just hoping, basically, that the grip is okay for you to stay seated. But yeah, I can see that a lot of people they may have developed a mental challenge which was never really there, but it comes from that physical challenge. And like you say, it could be from how they were taught to ride many years ago. It's just a repeating pattern that they've got into, and they're never going to get the full confidence until they get the physical confidence as well.
Absolutely. I mean, many people know that fitness, general fitness, makes you a more confident person. So, general fitness will make you a more confident rider, but rider specific fitness will help you change the rider you are to the rider you want to be, because it is very different. And feeling strong and able in your body changes the way you feel about yourself, and it gives you the confidence to try different things, to be open to more suggestion, to try different methods. And it reinstills that self-belief that actually you can, because if you can achieve a fitness goal, for example, then you can achieve anything. And that includes learning to be the rider you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that some people stay in the program for about 1.5 years. How quickly do people start to see results? Now, I know that's a how long's a length of string kind of thing, but if your typical person who may not have exercised since school, or maybe they've had kids and they've not exercised since before they had kids or something like that. How long does it take for them to start to see, I'm not saying the full blown results, but how long to see some results
4
approximately?
weeks.
Wow.
4 weeks. 4 weeks of doing a 5 to 15 minute specific workout 3 times a week. That's it.
Wow. That's nothing, is it? In the
It's
grand
nothing.
scheme
It's
of
the
things.
consistency. The 3 times a week of a very specifically structured program where you are doing the same movement patterns time and time again, retraining the body as well as the brain. And so that those movement patterns become almost self-automated. And remember, when you're in the saddle, you've got to think about the weather, the horse. Did you turn the washing machine off? The dragons in the hedge, what direction you're going, what speed you're going. You don't have time to think about what your body is doing.
Yeah.
So when you're consistent with a very structured program, within 4 weeks, the brain has already started reconnecting the correct pathways. So some of the movement patterns start to become automated. So, for example, in the rising trot, you learn to squeeze and push rather than to grip and hold. Just that simple thing makes riding a little bit more fluid. You notice the horse is a little bit more forward. You notice that actually you are controlling the pace. So there's little changes that start to happen that early on.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really, really fabulous. It just shows you, doesn't it? Because we always think about, oh God, exercise. I've got to go to the gym. I've got to do half an hour every week. Or I've got to be going 5 times a week. And it's such a drag, especially for equestrians, because we're time poor as well, aren't we? As well as often
Absolutely.
financially poor, but very time poor as well. So yeah, that is really fabulous. Can you give us then one little tip, and it could be practical or it may be something to think about. One little tip that you would give to equestrians.
Okay. Oh, so many. But coming back to the gripping, because I think that this can be life-changing for you. So many of you would have known about the Franklin method, and it is a great method, but get yourself some rolled up socks or some tennis balls. And as you get on your horse, now don't worry, I've never seen a horse freak out about a tennis ball, but gently place the tennis ball on each side inside the leg, just between where the thigh ends and the knee starts. So you want to place the balls on both sides there and hold it so the ball doesn't fall. But if you start to grip too hard, it's going to hurt. Now, that's a good thing. One, because it'll teach you not to do it. But two, it will teach you that you are doing it. And three, it's a trigger point. So it will start to lengthen and reduce the tension within the inside thigh. So start in a walk. There will be very little tension on the balls. Have a deep breath. Go into rising trot. Sitting trot is cheating. Go into rise and trot, and you will notice that you will get on every rise, you'll feel the pinch of the ball. And remember, you want to hold the ball softly so that it doesn't drop, but not enough that you get that feedback that it is just uncomfortable for you. And that is one sure way to know whether or not you are using too much inside thigh. And if you're using too much inside thigh, it has a knock-on effect on the rest of your body and how it is functioning. So you will know that it is dysfunctional. So if you focus and doing the trot, and if you're feeling really brave, do a transition to canter and canter to trot, you can focus on squeezing your bottom and relaxing the inside thigh. Then take the balls away, and I promise you, the ride from there on will be absolutely phenomenal.
That's a great tip. I love it. I love it. I haven't got any Franklin balls, but I might try some socks.
Yeah, or just tennis balls. Any of those like small balls that give, like you have some of those self-massage balls
Yeah.
or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you ever so much. So, where can we find you on the internet and where can we find you on socials?
So my socials is RiderCise for Facebook and RiderCise 365 for Instagram. And my website is ridercise.co.uk.
Oh, that's nice and simple. I'll put it all in the description box. But thank you so much, Claire. That has been so interesting. And I think we've all learned quite a lot, especially about gripping. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate your time.